To give this ship review some context, I have sailed with P&O Cruises more than any other cruise line, totaling more than 115 nights at sea, which includes a 24-night sailing aboard Arcadia in 2017. Up until a year ago, P&O was one of my most favoured cruise lines. Their vessels were always well maintained, clean, the standards of service and dining were forever exemplary, and you disembarked a cruise feeling as though you had received great value for money. In this review of Arcadia, I'm going to cover every aspect of the cruise that invoked anger, frustration and sheer disbelief, and why I have come away from Arcadia feeling very reluctant to book a cruise with P&O ever again. Embarkation onto Arcadia was the standard shambles you can expect from any carnival company when embarking in Southampton, where they make you join a long queue to check in, then they make you wait in the terminal for a lifetime while they call row by row to board. Often in a totally unorthodox fashion, where some people are called to board before other passengers whom arrived at the terminal much earlier. Whereas Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, NCL and MSC get you to pass through security and check in, and allow you to board once these formalities have been undertaken, which makes a lot more sense and certainly streamlines the embarkation process. Once we had finally boarded, we made our way to our cabin. The accommodation was okay, a little dated, but expected for the age of the ship. Any cruiser will know that cabins are one of the main areas which tend to show the ship's age before any other. However, something I can never accept is poor cleanliness, and the fine collection of long black hairs scattered around the balcony floor and deck furniture was pretty revolting. We had to complain 3 times before the hairs were finally removed, and rather than getting an apology from the hotel manager, we got an explanation. We have had a lot of rain, and rain has obviously washed the hairs down from the other cabins. Of course, it had nothing to do with the cabin being insufficiently cleaned before embarkation. It was the rain's fault. There were 3 passengers including myself to this cabin, utilising the twin beds and sofa bed in A028. The cabin steward told us that the nightly turn-down service long associated with a cruise has still not been reinstated by P&O Cruises, a service maintained all through post-2020 cruising by other cruise lines, including other carnival companies such as Princess and Cunard. Therefore, the sofa bed would have to be prepared and made up each evening by me, something I don't expect to have to do whilst on holiday. Now the question is, where are these cabin stewards if they're not turning down your cabin of an evening? Don't go thinking that they're down in the crew mess having a jolly. Oh no, P&O has other ideas for them. They will be assisting in other departments, most of the time in dining, as that is the key area where crew numbers are so lacking. This issue is not limited to P&O Cruises, but the severity of this problem is unmatched. And the reason service on board seems less friendly and less efficient is because many crew now find themselves in roles that they aren't familiar with. And this is also one of the contributing factors to why dining, particularly in relation to the standards of food, have fell so considerably. Many crew found in the galleys aboard P&O ships have not even trained as a chef. For all we know, they might not be able to fry an egg, but they're in the galley, helping out and trying to remedy this massive problem. Arcadia has 2 extra charge speciality restaurants on board, Sindhu, which is the Indian-inspired dining venue, and Marco Pierre White's Ocean Grill. I'd love to tell you how great the food was, but we weren't able to dine in them. We tried to book these venues through the cruise personaliser up to 2 months before our cruise, checking each week to see whether they were taking bookings. Each time we checked, we were greeted with a message saying book on board. Within an hour of embarking, we tried to book both venues to be told that Sindhu would be closed throughout the cruise and that Ocean Grill would only be taking bookings for the 2nd and 3rd day of the cruise. We were informed that we could book from 8 AM on the 2nd day, but when we tried at exactly 8 AM, we were greeted with the familiar message, fully booked. We were frustrated and angry. P&O widely promote speciality dining as must-do venues aboard their cruise ships, and you expect to get what you paid for. We tried to adapt a positive attitude, but this was short-lived when a broadcast came over the tannoy informing guests that Freedom Dining on day 1 was fully booked and that passengers should use the buffet restaurant instead. That unparalleled level of flexibility you get on a cruise ship when it comes to dining evaporated like a spilt drink in the Gobi Desert. There was no flexibility. It was the buffet or go hungry, at least on the first night anyway. Similarly to the attitude of the hotel manager that addressed our complaints regarding those pesky water gliding hairs, the food and beverage manager couldn't see any correlation between the ship being at full capacity, 2 speciality restaurants being closed, and there being no tables available in the Meridian restaurant. His attitude was totally uncompromising. An apology really wouldn't have gone amiss. Slop. There's no other way of putting it. It is undoubtedly some of the worst food I have ever eaten, not just on a cruise, but in my life. The vegetable korma and fries were the only hot dishes on offer for a vegetarian, and the laugh of it is they weren't even hot. This place couldn't even do custard and sticky toffee pudding right. As a British cruise line, you would expect them to be top of their game on this one. We had to clear our tables ourselves, and by that I mean transfer our virtually full plates to an adjacent table, and when we were asked by a waitress whether everything was okay with our meal, she simply laughed when I replied, "No, it's awful." It was genuinely terrible. The next morning we experienced further disappointments with dining. The Eric Lanlard afternoon tea experience, which P&O is widely known for, wasn't available on board. This is because it is usually held in the Ocean Grill, but because this venue now acts as an officer's mess during the day, this culinary experience was not available on Arcadia. We're presently up to 3 dining experiences not being available, and at this point you're probably wondering whether it could get any worse. Well, it did. The poolside grill was also shut, therefore the burgers, hot dogs and fish and chips you can usually get round by the pool and P&O ships wasn't available either. Judging by the look of it, it hasn't been open for a while. Hardly looks appealing, does it? Just like the speciality dining venues on board, we desired to book the hydrotherapy pool and thermal suite in the spa aboard Arcadia, only to be told on embarkation that this venue was fully booked. How? When we tried to book online before our cruise, we were specifically told to book on board, but somehow within an hour of embarkation they had sold every single spa pass. Another disappointment. P&O certainly don't shy away when it comes to promoting their spa. It's a key selling point for Arcadia, and if truth be told, it was one of the reasons we booked. We knew that we were going to be going on a cold cruise, and we thought it would be nice having a warm therapeutic spa to look forward to while cruising to colder climes. We also chose Arcadia for this mini cruise in November because we knew that she had an indoor pool. The Lido pool is very much like a small public pool you'd find anywhere in the UK. It wasn't the most aesthetically appealing pool I've ever seen, but generally for the age of the ship the pool itself was adequately maintained. The Lido pool is enclosed by a retractable roof, which they can open when Arcadia is sailing to destinations with a warmer climate. However, it isn't entirely watertight. Often during this cruise we experience drops of water landing on our heads, both when passing through and when sat on a sun lounger. And to make this worse, this pool area doesn't seem to be heated. While the pool itself is sufficiently heated, the air temperature inside the Lido pool area was forever cold, almost too cold to sit here during a colder cruise like the one which we did. All around Arcadia you will find that this ship is showing her age in several different ways. Fundamentally, she is the same ship as she was when she joined the P&O fleet in 2004. The company hasn't added any of the newer and more popular venues which can be found on other P&O ships, including the Glass House and Beach House. Arcadia has never been a glitzy or a glamorous ship in terms of her decor, but now she is really feeling quite tatty and dated in places. There seems to be leaks all over the ship, and this is made all the more obvious by the many wet floor signs you'll see all over Arcadia, squelching carpet in corridors and random buckets placed around the ship. Many parts of the ship were inaccessible for maintenance in one form or another, and even in parts of the ship which were accessible, it wasn't uncommon to see random maintenance equipment and materials just dumped in the passenger lobbies and corridors. At times, it felt as though we were on a cruise ship that wasn't officially in full service. Hygiene and cleanliness was also lacking aboard Arcadia, whether it be the lax approach towards hand sanitisation or long black hairs not just found on our balcony, but on the pool decks and more shockingly our table at dinner in the Meridian restaurant. There was also a couple of fresh food stains, which led me to ask the head waiter whether tablecloths are being changed between first and second sitting. The reply was only if it's completely necessary. Clearly, 2 stains and a couple of hairs isn't dirty enough to warrant a tablecloth change anymore. Not changing the tablecloth between sittings is wrong in many ways, but it makes me angry that P&O have had us jump through hoops for the best part of 2 years to minimise the spread of the big C and keep us safe, and now they aren't even prepared to change a tablecloth when it has nearly as much food on it as one of their menus. Talking of which, the limited variety on their menus is almost laughable. On the menu in the main dining, you can expect just 4 starters, 6 mains and 2 desserts. As if that isn't limited enough, tomato soup and the prawn cocktail are on the menu each evening, as is the salmon, steak and beef brisket. This is a good example of the cost cutting that is going on at P&O Cruises, whereby they are slimming down their menus considerably, and it seems as though they are simplifying the dishes on their menus so that they are easier to prepare by crew who have not had proper training. Another example in relation to menus is with drinks. Drink menus have been cut back so drastically that they now only have 6 cocktails on their bar menu, and 2 of those were off of the menu for this cruise because they didn't have the required ingredients for them. Most bars are pushing the express menu, which features just 3 cocktails, and none of them blew our socks off. I wasn't a big fan of the P&O drink package before this cruise, but having seen what the bar menus have been reduced to, no way can we recommend to viewers that you take out this drinks package. The menus are quite frankly pathetic. Don't go expecting great service aboard Arcadia, as we didn't experience it at all in the 3 days that we were on board. Finding a waiter to take a drinks order was near impossible, particularly around by the pool, and that friendly, going the extra mile level of hospitality was totally absent. The photo gallery was also closed throughout our cruise, therefore you couldn't purchase photographs taken by the ship's professional photographers. This wasn't an issue that bothered us too much, as it's not a service that we usually use. However, the same principle applies. You should get what you pay for. All services and facilities should be available as advertised, and when you combine with this the closed speciality restaurants, poolside grill and a fully booked spa, you can surely understand our frustrations. Weighing everything up that we experienced during this cruise, we feel totally disheartened. P&O used to be fantastic. Once upon a time, service used to stand out from other cruise lines, as did the dining, the entertainment and the upkeep of their vessels. P&O have already alienated some of their most loyal cruisers by getting rid of the smaller, more intimate ships in their fleet and focusing more on the huge glitzy superliners of the future. Judging by the state of Arcadia, it does almost feel as if they've stopped any investment into her and they've started to wind her down. To be honest, we didn't have the best time aboard Britannia either, and there were certainly clear parallels between the issues experienced aboard Arcadia, Britannia and even Iona in 2021, particularly with reference to dining issues, crew shortages and being able to book onboard venues such as the spa. While the excuse of crew shortages may have worked a year or so ago, that reason given for a degraded onboard experience is now wearing pretty thin. We're now more than 18 months into the start-up of cruise operations post-2020, and by now you'd really expect things to be getting better. Over the past year or so, we have sailed with 9 different cruise lines, and the issues described in this video are either unique to Arcadia or are far worse on board compared to other cruise ships we have sailed on. Based on our own experience, we cannot commit to booking another cruise aboard Arcadia. The issues we experienced were just too great, and it's not as though we had great customer care dealing with these complaints either. Management seemed argumentative, and rather than recognise that there were problems, they'd just try and explain their way out of it, rather than saying, "I'm sorry." How can you sort a problem if you don't think one exists? P&O don't think there is anything to worry about, and boy did we want to boycott P&O at the end of this cruise. But we booked a super cheap cruise aboard Ventura for February 2023, and that really will be make or break for P&O as to whether we will cruise with them again going forward. Having had a perusal on Cruise Critic when we got home, we can see that our experience aboard Arcadia is far from isolated. In fact, it looks pretty damning. Thanks for watching.
And lastly, a big thank you to our Patreons. Because of you, we can continue doing what we love with your extra support. If you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, click the link in the description below. In return, you will get extra benefits such as early access to our videos, behind the scenes sneak peeks, Zoom calls, Christmas and birthday gifts and much more.